We pull, clean, combine, and transform our data all so that we can ultimately send it off. This is where all of our hard work building the logic of the flow finally turns into action. I want you to think about what happens when you're done working with data manually in spreadsheets. Usually you'll go do something like email a report, update records across systems, maybe notify the team of discrepancies, or update a visualization to analyze the data. The send step in the flow framework represents that same action step. And in this lesson, the goal is for you to understand the various ways of sending data out or actioning on it in Parabola with a focus on the method that is going to be the fastest and easiest to implement for your first flow. Similar to how we have 4 different categories of data sources when we're pulling data in, we also have 4 broad categories of data exports for when we're sending data out at the end of our flow. Those include static files, emails and messages, parabola tables and visualizations, and external systems and databases. Let's walk through some common examples within each one of these buckets. Static files encompass CSV and Excel files that we can generate at the end of our flow and download directly to our computer. Email and messaging apps allow you to trigger notifications and share data in real time, both internally and externally. Most commonly, that looks like triggering a message in some place like Slack or Microsoft Teams when action is required, or triggering an email, whether that is sending a file attachment or looping through a dataset and emailing individuals row by row. As we covered in the pulling data lesson, sending data to parabola tables and visualizations allow you to store and visualize data directly in Parabola. Sending data to a parabola table is super useful when you're blending data from multiple sources or cleaning up a dataset, and you want to make that dataset reusable for your teammates and access across other flows. Similarly, sending data to a visualize step allows you to create a dynamic dashboard or visualization that you can share out with your team. As you can see in this sample dashboard here, those visualizations can include both top-line metrics, such as KPIs, as well as a pivot table-like view with rolled-up values, and also different graphs and charts to really visualize the data however you see fit. Finally, we have external systems and databases. Parabola can automatically push data directly into the tools that you use every day, whether that's Google Sheets or something like NetSuite or Snowflake. If we don't have a native pre-built integration with the tool in your stack, you can also connect via API to virtually any tool that offers a public API. While we've covered all 4 export category options in this lesson, when you're building your first flow, I'd recommend you start by outputting a static file such as a CSV or Excel file. This is the quickest and easiest to set up, and ultimately once you've proved out your use case, it's easy to circle back and swap in a live integration, email step, or whatever other output option you'd like. Now that we understand the 4 categories of exports, let's now talk about how we add these steps and ultimately run our flow. Similar to the way in which we pull data, when we send data, we can add steps to the canvas either by prompting Parabola or dragging and dropping a step right onto the canvas. For instance, maybe I want to ask Parabola, send me this data as an email at my email address. It'll go find the right step and add it directly to the canvas. Now that Parabola has added that step to email a file attachment, I want to add 2 additional ways to send our data to this flow. The first is to generate a CSV file, as I recommend for your first flow, and the second is to create a visualization so that it's really easy to see if there are any patterns across which shipping methods we're seeing discrepancies across. To generate that CSV file, I'm going to come into the search bar and just search for CSV. We'll see this generate CSV file step, and I'll just drag and drop that right onto the canvas and connect our arrow to ultimately generate a CSV when we run this flow. To finally add a visualization that could power dashboards, I have a couple options. I could ask Parabola to add it to the canvas. I can click on integrations and use this visualize step. Or if you hover over any step in Parabola, you'll see the ability to add a visualization directly from the data in that step. After rearranging our steps, you can see that by default, Parabola is going to drop a nice table of data onto the canvas. But if I click in and edit this view, we can toggle between different types of visualizations, from featured metrics, which are great for KPIs, to things that you might build in Tableau, like a column chart. In this example, I created a couple different views that we'll see on our dashboard in just a second. Things like a pivot table-like view, where I can see the total amount of discrepancies by shipping method, a nice graph where I can visualize that a little bit more clearly, and then finally some nice headline metrics where I can see exactly, nice and easily, the total amount of our invoice discrepancies. Now, since I have this box checked to also show on our dashboard, if I toggle from the canvas to the dashboard, now we'll see all of those same visualizations in a dashboard that we can customize and share out with the team. At this point, we've completed all the steps of the flow framework, from pulling our data to sending our data. So it's time to introduce an important concept, and that is the difference between building a flow and running a flow. When you build flows in Parabola, you never have to worry about data being sent to another system before it's ready, because in order to run a flow, you need to explicitly either hit the Run Flow button in the top right, or set the flow on a recurring schedule. If I click on the little clock here, I can see that this flow has not run yet, so that means that I wouldn't have received any emails yet. As soon as I click Run Flow, you're going to see each one of these steps pulling in live data if you're using a dynamic data source, running through each one of those clean, combine, transform, send steps, and once it gets to the end of the flow, now it will actually send me that email, generate that CSV, and I can see here that this flow has ran successfully, and if I click in, I can download the CSV that was generated as a result of this run. With the flow framework complete, it's time to talk about how we actually take what we built and operationalize it so it's durable for the future. Make sure to complete the building challenge at the bottom of this page before you go on to the next lesson. I'll see you there.